Good evening. Welcome to this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show. My name is Leon Jones. Tonight's topic, I'm going to talk about the psychological and health consequences of loneliness. Now, science has shown that humans have an innate need to feel connected. We are social beings with a fundamental need to belong. This need is not only essential to our own growth and development when we were young, but continues to play a role in our overall sense of well-being throughout our lives. In fact, feelings of loneliness have been linked to a variety of mental and physical health consequences. Many people with panic disorder or another anxiety disorder experience loneliness that is pervasive and overwhelming. This can be especially true if one becomes isolated due to agoraphobia or sometimes shame, embarrassment, and a desire to keep our condition a secret, preventing us from making the connection we need with others. Now, loneliness is a feeling, it has often been defined as a feeling of disconnectedness or isolation. Now, all humans can and probably do experience loneliness from time to time. Experiencing the loss of a friendship or significant other can lead to normal feelings of loneliness. This type of situational loneliness usually revolves or resolves as one comes to accept the realities of the current status of the relationship that they're in, and they basically move on to form other social connections. Now, loneliness is subjective in the sense that it is based on one's individual perceptions about their relationships with others. For example, someone with a panic disorder might be surrounded by supportive friends and family, but deep down inside, he or she feels an overwhelming sense of loneliness. Now, panic disorder can lead to feeling fearful, different, or defective in some way, and this can affect one's self-esteem and sense of self-worth. Now, this perception may be irrational, illogical, and just plain untrue. Nevertheless, it holds the kind of power as if it were factual. Now, people do get loneliness and aloneness mixed up. So I'm going to break down the definition right now, because loneliness is not the same as being alone. In fact, a person can feel lonely even when they're surrounded by many. Some studies show people who live in large cities have a higher degree of loneliness than those who come from close-knit small towns. Just because many are around us doesn't automatically mean that we have the same sense of connectedness and emotional well-being to thwart loneliness. Now, the existence school of thought proposes we are all involved in a human paradox. We are alone and yet related. To have healthy relationships with others, we must first be comfortable in our own company. By experiencing loneliness, we become more confident and secure in our sense of who we are. Our values come from within as we gain a level of independence that doesn't need the approval of others. If we are unable to experience loneliness, we may develop unhealthy patterns of dependency on others, and that is known as a dependency personality disorder. Because when it comes to loneliness, some studies have suggested that loneliness can be linked to a number of psychological and physical difficulties, including depression, substance abuse, increased smoking, increased anxiety, reduced medical care and compliance, increased stress levels, reduced satisfaction with life, decreased self-esteem, increased blood pressure. The bottom line is that overwhelming and pervasive loneliness is a factor in psychological stress, and that may ultimately culminate in serious physical disease. So what can we do? Well, a sense of loneliness, again, allows us, and this is just my personal opinion, to examine ourselves. But a sense of connectedness allows us to better adapt to life's many changes. So loneliness can chip away at our psychological well-being and impact our physical health. But you can do other things to cope with feelings of loneliness and regain your sense of belonging. Building a support network is another great way to reduce loneliness and the impact of its consequences. Now, I always say my personal opinion, and I'm giving you my own so you can agree or disagree with it or not. I always believe that you should examine who you are, because if you know your own characteristics, by dealing with yourself, you gain a sense of pride and confidence when you go out and meet different people. And you can evaluate different people based on what you see of yourself, because most of us want to get involved with people of like minds. Why? Because there is less conflict. Now, I always hear a number of people say they are lonely, and I've heard this time and time again, that you can have a lot of people around you, and that is true. Let's go to cities like New York and Chicago and LA, three of the largest cities in the continental United States. You combine all three of those cities, I mean, they have close to 20 million people. Or you go to Beijing, China, which is a city with a population of 24 million. That's 3 or 4 states put together in the United States when it comes to population. But even with those big cities, you still may not feel connected because there are just too many people. Where I like the small town living because it's very easy to connect, because people in smaller towns tend to be a little more polite, whereas people in larger cities tend to be more rude. No manners. So what I'm saying about loneliness, and the reason why I say it is a state of mind, is because for the most part, there's a difference between being an innate creature of habit who wants to connect and an innate creature of habit who feels they have to connect. Bottom line is, all through your life, you're going to make connections with other people. Being alone or even being bored are options. They're choices. But those choices do happen in life. Loneliness is not a disorder. There are health consequences from loneliness, but it's not the same as having anxiety. Now, can it lead to anxiety? Certainly it can, but that depends on the kind of state that you're putting yourself in, because there is no treatment for loneliness, because it is not a depression. It is not a cancer. And I always believe that it's best to get to know who you are. Why? Because you build confidence with knowing what your circumstances are. Because as a human being, I like my independence. I don't need to have approval of others to gain their trust in me. That's something I have to show them. But too many of us, from being lonely, we give up our own belief system to become validated for other people, or to validate other people, or we look for validation from other people. Because loneliness has many forms. Like I've always told, when it comes to women, I've always said this. Many of them don't want to let their kids go because they're going to experience what we call the empty nest syndrome, which is really a dependency personality disorder, because I know one who has that. And she feels at night alone. Well, I live here alone myself here in Portage, Indiana, and I never feel alone at night. Yes, would it be nice to have somebody in your bed next to you? It would. But even with that person in the bed with you, you can still feel lonely. Why? Because you may not be on the same page with your lives. And that's the point. to get rid of the loneliness and connect with somebody, you want to connect with people who have like minds. Many of us fail to realize that, and when it comes to relationships, we get with the wrong people, and what happens? We waste a lot of time. And there's this acronym that I've come up with when it comes to meeting people. It's money, energy, emotion, time. You put all that together, that spells MEET. MEET. This is why it's very important. And I tell many individuals, take yourself out to dinner, take yourself out to a movie. And if you understand your flaws as a person, you're being true to yourself. See, a number of us aren't true to ourselves because we think we don't have any flaws. We have a lot of flaws, but it's easy to blame somebody else or call them on their flaws. Well, to connect with somebody, this is truth. You need to know who you are. Know your own self-worth. Know your own self-esteem. Because people who aren't in your circles aren't going to care about you anyway. Don't ever look for somebody to validate you as a person. Don't look for approval. Because you're not going to get their approval because they're not thinking about you. But by the way, you're not thinking about them either. It's a two-way street. But you build connections based on companionship, and that companionship must come from compatibility. And this is all relationships. That being said, loneliness is not a mental disorder. It's really based on one's perceptions. And if we all understand that, we really shouldn't be lonely. Because whether you have somebody there with you or not, it really all depends on compatibility. But other than that, the smart way to get rid of loneliness is to do your own self-analyzing. If you assess yourself, you know where your flaws are, it'll be more advantageous to you when you meet people, because you got to understand that you are not a perfect person. What is perfection? Perfection is getting the maximum amount of results for little effort. That doesn't exist. People are going to see you different than you see yourself. So in order to connect with people, it is not your job to look for their approval. And that's what's wrong with a number of us. Because sometimes it is better to be alone temporarily than have a bunch of people around. Because if you get people who are inadequate to the direction of life that you're going in, and they're failures, you're going to be a failure. Mark my word. You're judged by the company you keep. And that's my commentary for this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show for this evening, Friday, July 21st, 2017. You can tune into the 411 Talk Zone radio show every Saturday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Blog Talk Radio. Your guest call-in number is 215-383-5785. If you like my videos, please share and subscribe to the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube so I can continue to give you quality information for educational purposes from a professional and mature perspective. Now on this channel, I don't engage in debates, controversy, or emotional issues, nor do I participate in drama and or unnecessary bickering. Why? Because it's counterproductive and a waste of time. What I'm here to do is teach, to educate you so you understand the challenges of the real world. Because without any tools, you're going to struggle with this system. And the information that I provide is researched by me, and I give you my own personal experiences. Why? Because the information is 100% real and positive, because knowledge is power. And if you have a business, a topic, or a new YouTube channel that you would like for me to discuss on YouTube or Blog Talk Radio, please email me at lej leon6521@gmail.com. And if you have a comment, please leave your comment in the comment section under the video. But make sure that your comments are pithy, no bloviating, pettifogging, or filibustering if you wish to opine. And that's it for this video. Till next time, my name is Leon Jones. Remember, please be gentle and respectful to each other, and have a wonderful and blessed night. Good night.